Nevertheless, the Lord raised up judges, which delivered them out of the hand of those that spoiled them. And yet they would not hearken unto their judges.
So, who are we talking about tonight? Samson. We are talking about Samson tonight. Samson is probably the most famous judge. Who all's heard of Samson before right now? Everybody. Samson is the most famous judge, right behind Gideon, because, not really sure why, but he's the most famous judge. We all know him. Everybody's heard of him. Samson's name means little son. Samson's name literally translated means little son. This is believed to be after the gods that surrounded his parents. There was a town right down the road where they worshiped the sun god of the Philistines. And so they named this man, who was called by God to do miraculous things by God, after another god. Israel has a lot of stuff going on right now. They're struggling a lot. And so a judge of Israel is named after another god in an effort to give that god homage. Samson, like I said, means little son. So we're going to get right into it. We're going to do a lot more reading tonight than we usually do, because the story moves very, very fast, and there wasn't really anything I felt could be left out as we look at this judge. So, page 122 in the Blue Bible, Judges 13, 1 through 6. We begin and we see the birth and the calling of Samson. Chapter 13, verses 1 through 6. And the people of Israel again did what was evil in the sight of the Lord, which means what? A brand new what? Cycle. If you want to be smart. Apostasy. Right? Means they worshipped the other gods. So a brand new apostasy as they begin to follow other. Yeah, that's it. Apostasy. As they begin to follow other gods. So the Lord gave them into the hand of the Philistines for 40 years. There was a certain man of Zorah, of the tribe of the Danites, whose name was Manoah. And his wife was barren and had no children. And an angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, Behold, you are barren and have not borne children. But you shall conceive and bear a son. Therefore be careful and drink no wine or strong drink, and eat nothing unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazarite to God from the womb. And he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. So we see the calling of Samson. His birth is foretold, and not only with that, there are stipulations. Samson is a Nazarite. Samson was supposed to be a Nazarite from birth. God said, I need you to be this. I need you to be a Nazarite. In an effort to explain what a Nazarite is, I'll kind of give you some of the laws and rules concerning that. Nazarite means to be separated or consecrated. So a Nazarite was someone to be separated for the work of God. They were set apart. They were different. God specifically had a purpose for them. They were supposed to be something else. Right? They were consecrated to God. Now there were a lot of rules and things that went along with this. There are about 5 features of it, and then we'll give you the 3 main rules. If you want to study what a Nazarite is, go to number 6, 1 through 22. If you want to write that down so you have it for later. That's where we get all this about Nazarites. Has 5 features. It is voluntary first. It can be done by either man or woman. It's not specific. Has a specific time frame, so it has a specific goal. You say, I'm going to be a Nazarite. I choose to be a Nazarite until this day, or this time, or this thing. Right? It has an endpoint. It has to. It has specific requirements and restrictions. And at its conclusion, a sacrifice is offered. Right? So these are the 5 features of a Nazarite. When God said, I need your son to be a Nazarite, if they knew the law, which they should have, but if you read the book of Judges, you begin to realize they didn't very much. This is what he was asking of them. There were 3 main rules to a Nazarite. The first one was this: abstain from wine or any fermented drink. Nor was the Nazarite to drink grape juice or eat grapes or raisins, not even the seeds or skins. He was supposed to stay away from everything that had grape in it. He was supposed to stay away from all those things. One author says that this was in an effort, the reason why they could no longer drink wine, they used wine to kill the bacteria in their water by not drinking wine, they were showing their faith in God to protect them from that. Right? They set themselves apart from God, and they believed God was going to protect them and carry them through, and so thus they were not supposed to drink any wine where they used alcohol to kill the stuff in the water. Next, Nazarite was not to cut his hair for the length of the vow. So as long as you were a Nazarite, you didn't cut your hair. Exciting? You couldn't cut your hair for the length of the vow. And that's showing everybody else. This was an outward appearance showing everybody else. And then a Nazarite was not to go near a dead body because that would make him ceremonially unclean. A Nazarite was not supposed to go near a dead body at all. Now, how many of y'all know the story of Samson? You know where this ends. Alright? For those of you who don't know, I hate to spoil it, Samson dies. Samson dies at the end of this. What is interesting here, as you look at it, knowing the end, you can kind of see how some of these things are fulfilled. What were the 5 main features of a Nazarite? The first, it was voluntary.
Man or woman.
Man or woman. A specific time frame. It had requirements and restrictions. And at its conclusion, it had a sacrifice. What does God say here to his parents? Simply, he will be a Nazarite. Don't cut his hair. He will be a Nazarite. Don't cut his hair. What is there? She said, don't cut his hair. See, God views the present the same as we view the past. And here's what I mean by that. When you look at this and you talk about this and you see this, you understand now the restrictions of a Nazarite, and you understand what a Nazarite was supposed to be. They were set apart by God for a specific time. What was Samson's specific time? Right, to begin to save Israel from the Philistines. That was his specific time. He was also not supposed to cut his hair, which makes sense. Also, at the end of that, what was the law regarding Nazarites? What was supposed to happen at the end? There was a sacrifice. Notice God doesn't say any of that. God still calls Samson to be a Nazarite. You've got to remember the Nazarite vow was set apart by God, God's laws, God's rules. God's not going to break his laws or break his rules. What happened at the end of Samson's life? He died. He sacrifices himself. What was his length of time? Till he started defeating the Philistines. When you look back at this, you can see how God uses all this to play out these laws and play out these rules. But as you sit here and look ahead, if you didn't know the end of the story, and you knew what a Nazarite vow encased, you would have to believe there was something kind of funny here. God doesn't give any of those details. And ultimately, Samson, through God's ordination, fulfills all of his Nazarite requirements. He breaks them first, but then he fulfills them at the end. Does that make sense? God views the present the same way we view the past. God sees what is going to happen and understands how it's going to happen. I think this passage kind of shows that. When you truly understand what a Nazarite was, and you understand what Samson did, you begin to see God's just preordained this to happen. God's preordained this to happen. Another odd feature, the Israelites never call for help. Listen, the Israelites never say, save us from the Philistines. Who decided they needed to be saved? God. God shows up and says, hey, it's time to save you. What you'll see through this story is a lot of them don't want to be saved. Judah in particular is like, you know what? We'd rather have them than you. They don't want to be saved. God has stepped up. God is saying, I'm going to save you out of the hand of the Philistines, even though you don't want it. Even though you don't want it. And that's ultimately what happens. So let's go to Judges 14. Let's go to Judges 14. You ready, buckle in?
But that's where we're at today.
Yeah.
God's here to save us, and we choose not to.
Right. We're here to be God's here to present the salvation, and we don't want it. In this case, God forces his salvation and saves him anyway. Chapter 14. Samson went down to Timnah, and at Timnah he saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. Then he came up and told his father and mother, I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines in Timnah. Now get her for me as my wife. But his father and mother said to him, is there not a woman among the daughters of your relatives or among all the people that you must go and take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? But Samson said to his father, get her for me, for she is right in my eyes. His father and mother did not know that it was from the Lord. for he was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines. At that time, the Philistines ruled over Israel. Who gives Samson this desire? God. What's God trying to start? A fight. God's trying to start a fight. He's trying to break this up. God's ordination is all over his life. Even though Samson does so much dumb stuff, God's all over his life. And saying, we're going to start this. We're going to start saving Israel from the Philistines, whether you like it or not. Verse 5. Then Samson went down with his father and mother to Timnah. And they came to the vineyards of Timnah, and behold, a young lion came toward him roaring. Then the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and although he had nothing in his hand, he tore the lion in pieces, as one tears a young goat. But he did not tell his father or his mother what had happened, what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and she was right in Samson's eyes. After some days he returned to take her, and he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, there was a swarm of bees in the body of the lion, and honey. He scraped it out with his hand, and he went on eating as he went. And he came to his father and his mother, and gave some to them. And they ate, but he did not tell them that he had scraped the honey from the carcass of the lion. Verse 10. His father went down to the woman, and Samson prepared a feast there, for so the young men used to do. As soon as the people saw him, they brought 30 companies to be with him. And Samson said to them, Let me now put a riddle to you. If you tell me what it is within 7 days of the feast, and find it out, then I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. Verse 13. But if you cannot tell me what it is, then you shall give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothes. And they said to him, Put your riddle, that we may hear it. And he said to them, Out of the eater came something to eat. Out of the strong came something sweet. And in 3 days they could not solve the riddle. So what has happened thus far? He's at his wedding feast, and what does he do? To his guests and to his people? He gives them a riddle. Really odd riddle at that. He gives them a riddle. Who is? Yeah, okay, he's excited. You'll see through this. He really likes riddles and games. He was described by one as a man-child. All right, verse 15. On the 4th day, they said to Samson's wife, Entice your husband to tell us what the riddle is, lest we burn you and your father's house with fire. Have you invited us here to impoverish us? And Samson's wife wept over him and said, You only hate me. You do not love me. You have put a riddle to my people, and you have not told me what it is. And he said to her, Behold, I have not told my father nor my mother. And shall I tell you? She wept before him the 7 days that their feast lasted. And on the 7th day he told her, because she pressed him hard. Then she told the riddle to her people. And the men of the city said to him on the 7th day, before sun went down, What is sweeter than honey? What is stronger than a lion? And he said to them, If you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have found out my riddle. Yep, that's right. He's not happy. Verse 19. And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and he went down to Ashkelon, and struck down 30 men of the town, and took their spoil, and gave the garments to those who he had told the riddle. In hot anger he went back to his father's house, and Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had been his what? Who had been his best man. The bride's father gave his bride to his best man. I don't know if you've ever been there. I don't really have much to tell you on that, so good luck. That sounds like a bummer. So Samson is a man of riddles. Like I said, he's kind of described as a man-child. He constantly does crazy things, and he presents this riddle. Right? And ultimately he loses the riddle because of his effort. So he claims. Chapter 14, 8 and 9, Samson breaks the first law of the vow. He eats out of the dead lion. What was the Nazarite not supposed to touch ever? A dead body. They were not supposed to touch a dead body. It was so strict that even if you had a relative, a close relative, die, you were not supposed to get close to them. You were supposed to leave. You were supposed to stay away. Samson apparently has no care for his Nazarite vow. Not only that, but he is marrying a Philistine woman, which is the people he's supposed to be fighting. He's married a Philistine woman, and he continually breaks his vow. He seems to have no interest in what God has done. Verse 19, God is using an imperfect situation to accomplish his will. God's using an imperfect situation to accomplish his will. The Spirit of the Lord rushed upon Samson. What does Samson do? He kills 30 people of the Philistines. He kills 30 of the Philistines. Samson's weaknesses are evident in chapter 14, but his strengths are shown in chapter 15. A couple of Samson's weaknesses, we see that he has an eye for Philistine women, which he should not have. He also really likes riddles to a weird extent. And then he also gets angry, and he leaves. He goes home to the point that the bride's father's like, well, I guess he's not coming back. It's like they're at the wedding feast, and he's like, well, you want her? Maybe. And he leaves. So let's go on to chapter 15. Like I said, we'll try to get through this. In chapter 15, like I said, we begin to see the strength of Samson. We begin to see his high points, his only high points in his life, as a powerful, powerful judge. Chapter 15. After some days, at the time of the wheat harvest, Samson went to visit his wife with a young goat. That's awkward. And he said, I will go in to my wife in the chamber. But her father would not allow him to go in. And her father said, I really thought that you utterly hated her. So I gave her to your companion. Is not her younger sister more beautiful than she is? They're just giving everybody away right here. Please take her instead. Verse 3, and Samson said to them, this time I shall be innocent in regard to the Philistines when I do them harm. Verse 4, so Samson went and caught 300 foxes and took torches, and he turned them tail to tail and put the torch between each of their pair of tails. And when he had set fire to the torches, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines and set fire to the stacked grain into the standing grain, as well as the olive orchards. Then the Philistines said, who has done this? And they said, Samson, the son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion. And the Philistines came up and burned her and her father with fire. And Samson said to them, if this is what you do, I swear I will be avenged on you, and after that I will quit. And he struck them hip and thigh with a great blow, and he went down and stayed in the cleft of the rock at Edom. Then the Philistines came up and encamped in Judah and made raid on Lehi. And the man of Judah said, why have you come against us? And they said, we have come up to bind Samson, to do to him as he did to us. Verse 11. Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cleft of the rock at Edom, and said to Samson, do you not know that the Philistines are rulers over us? What then is this that you have done to us? Who's Judah? Now, Judah, Israelites, they're coming to Samson, who's supposed to be the judge to save them from the Philistines. Like, hey, wait a second, bud. We kind of like this. Don't mess this up for us. 3,000 of them. The whole town's out here. Like, we're gonna take it. The Philistines are rulers over us. What about this? Don't you understand? Verse 12. And they said to him, we have come down to bind you, that we may give you into the hands of the Philistines. And Samson said to them, swear to me that you will not attack me yourselves. And they said to him, no, we will only bind you and give you into their hands. We will surely not kill you. Well, they don't need to. The Philistines are getting ready to. So they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. When they came to Lehi, the Philistines came shouting to meet him. And the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and the ropes that were on his arms became flax that has caught fire, and his bonds melted off his hands. And he found fresh jawbone of a donkey, and put out his hand and took it, and with it he struck 1,000 men. And Samson said, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps. With the jawbone of a donkey I have struck down 1,000 men. As soon as he had finished speaking, he threw away the jawbone out of his hand, and at that place he was called Ramath-Lehi. And he was very thirsty, and he called upon the Lord and said, you have granted this great salvation by my hand of your servant, and shall I now die of thirst and fall into the hands of the uncircumcised? And God split open a hollow place in Lehi, and the water came out from it. And when he drank, his spirit returned, and he was revived. Therefore the name of the place is called En Pekorah. it is a little high to this day. And he judged Israel in the days of the Philistines for 20 years. He judged Israel and the Philistines for 20 years. And so they come out to take him, they come out to kill him because Samson has burned down all their stuff. Samson caught, it says foxes, it's not a good translation. The better translation is jackals. He caught jackals, which apparently very easy to catch. They ran in packs. And so he caught these jackals, he tied them together, 300 of them, and set them out into the fields right at harvest time. You guys ever seen dry wheat catch fire? Oh, it just explodes. And so he burns down all their food. He burns down all of their stuff. And this was kind of something military. This is what militaries would do to each other. When they came into a new place to take it over, they'd burn all the crops down in an effort to make sure they couldn't do anything. And Samson has done this. Samson has done this. Verses 9 through 13, Samson is betrayed by his own people. His own people turn on him. The judge God has picked for them, the judge who's supposed to save them from the Philistines, Judah, the mighty tribe. Remember, Judah was the first tribe to step up in the book. They said, man, we're going to take on all these people. In the beginning of the book and in the history of Israel, Judah couldn't fight enough people. Judah was all over it, man. They were all on top of it. Now Judah, the mightiest tribe in Israel, is turning over their hero to the Philistines in an effort to avoid one. Samson is betrayed by his own people, and amazingly, he's very kind to them. He's very, very kind to them. He shows them an odd amount of respect during this time. And so they turn him over. Samson breaks the ropes and then kills 1,000 Philistines with the jawbone of a donkey, a fresh donkey at that. Was Samson supposed to touch dead things? No. God can use imperfect people in imperfect situations to accomplish His will. And he kills 1,000 Philistines. Verse 18, Samson prays for the first time in the book. He only prays one other time in this story, showing that he understands who he's fighting for, showing that he understands who God is. Right? And we're going to have to finish there. It is 6:30. We'll finish Samson next week. And we'll get on chapter 16 next week. Alright guys, I'm going to pray. Like I said, if you have any questions about what we've been talking about, studying anything in Judges, I will be up here to hang out for a few minutes after. Like I said, my goal is to do this every week. So let me go ahead and pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for this time we have together to be able to study and to look at your word. Lord, I pray that you will help continue to teach us something through your word. Lord, that you may be glorified through our lives and through our study. And all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.